When I first saw the TV spot for 65, the only things I saw were Adam Driver and what seemed to be a Quiet Place style horror movie with dinosaurs. The fact that they didn't show much of the dinosaurs in said spot made me feel like maybe it was a smaller budget project. Not that that is a problem, because when I went into the movie, I adjusted my expectations based upon this fact. As well as, of course, the pretty scathing reviews that critics have given the film, which are hard to ignore, although the majority haven't been saying the movie is offensive by any means. It does pose the question: were the critics right about the film? Well, at the worldwide box office so far, it has managed to scoop up $20,828,361 on a $45 million budget during a competitive weekend with Scream 6 and Creed 3 and more movies to come this month. That leads me to ask myself, will 65 be able to rake in enough money to be able to be profitable? Either way, it doesn't look like this movie is going to be the next franchise starter or next Alien franchise. It didn't need to be that in order to be entertaining, though. And with the premise it presented, it definitely had the potential. I could never get enough of the dinosaurs in this movie, although they were nothing we hadn't seen before. I thought that the two main leads in this film were serviceable enough, though it definitely helps to already be an established sci-fi, action, and Adam Driver fan. With a few intense sequences and some creative, interesting concepts, it definitely was entertaining at times. As a Star Wars fan, it was nice seeing Kylo Ren flying a ship, even though he pretty much immediately crashed it and killed everyone on board. It was cool. At the end of the day, I think 65 was a basic enough story that it still ended up setting up perhaps too much for its own runtime. The film dips into a couple of interesting ideas, but never really fully commits to any of them, unfortunately. An incredibly unimportant minor spoiler at the very beginning of the movie begins with Mills, played by Adam Driver, and it is a storyline where he has to leave his dying daughter behind, knowing they most likely won't ever see each other again. They play off this in the movie in ways very reminiscent of scenes in Interstellar, although it never ends up being quite as interesting or effective. There are nice touches throughout the movie of their relationship, but it never pays off other than one little moment at the end with our two leads where they strongly suggest that yes, finally, he completely sees his old daughter in his new adoptive daughter, but it just fails to resonate with me on the level they intended. I think that with either longer runtime or a better script, I could have been more invested in our two main characters, and if the film overall I had a better story, had been a little more focused. If there is selling a sci-fi, action, or thriller, then I was unfortunately not satisfied with any of the three. The action was pretty good, and a few intense scenes throughout the movie, specifically with some of the other life in the movie, but there were too many scenes focusing on the relationship of Mills and his newfound daughter, making me wonder why we couldn't focus on interesting new ideas in the sci-fi realm, or if they could have given us more scenes with different animals, bugs, dinosaurs, or set up some more scenes that build suspense. It was trying too much, and they should have just kept it simple. I believe it also would have been more effective as a sci-fi horror rather than just as a thriller if it had dug its teeth into the gore, even the jump scares, suspense building, and the overall wonder and fear of the unknown. Then the slower parts or character-driven parts would have paid off more with having that nice contrast against the action and violence as opposed to boredom. Instead, it felt like throughout the movie they were hiding the dinosaurs, which would have been fine in a horror movie since some horror is known for what you hear rather than what you see. It's nighttime, you hear the growling and snarling all around you. You slow things down to build the fear and suspense and pay it off with the action and fear. You could save money on visuals and make your visuals more focused and exciting that way too. The movie had good sound design, but it could have utilized it more effectively in a horror film in my opinion. The action sprinkled in wasn't enough to carry the film, and the story wasn't either, unfortunately. This film is a great example of wasted potential. A lot of interesting concepts were executed horribly. And there were a few exciting and even intense sequences, but nothing you haven't seen before that leads to a third act that delivers the best visuals of the movie and maybe the most action set pieces. But along the way, stumbles into many tropes of not just sci-fi, but father-daughter relationship tropes, thriller, action movies, but even adventure and disaster movies. At times felt like a little bit of a streaming movie, even for the smaller budget, and maybe if you're a big enough of an Adam Driver fan, a sci-fi dinosaur fan, or even just a movie fan in general, then maybe wait until it does drop to a streaming service, because it probably will in less than a month or two. 65 could have been the next sci-fi horror franchise with this concept and cast, I truly believe that. And maybe if a Sam Raimi or a James Wan had written and directed instead of taking on one of the many co-producing roles, although I am a fan of this team, so it is unfortunate. I never felt like these characters were as invested into each other as they wanted me to believe, and I never felt like they were in danger. I felt like they were in a movie. So, unfortunately with this one, the critics didn't get it wrong.